What?
No, not tonight.
That's what you said last night and the night before that.
It's my time to relax, okay? I've worked hard all day, kids are in bed, and I just want to read my book.
We can't keep avoiding this. This credit card statement is stressing me out.
You are stressing me out.
How am I stressing you out?
All your talk about money all the time. Just give it a rest.
Well, somebody's got to take care of this. We can't just let it go.
I'm not letting it go. I think about it all the time. I just don't want to talk about it.
Exactly. And you not talking about it is letting it go. So where does that leave us?
It leaves us at, I'm tired. I want to read my book. You're being annoying. I don't like what I'm hearing.
It's called budgeting?
It sounds like you're taking away my freedom.
Well, I don't really like it either, but remember what they said in the marriage conference at church. Pastor Scott said it's good for healthy marriages.
Okay, if you say Pastor Scott said one more time in this marriage, I'm really...
He's a smart guy. All I'm saying is that it's healthy for our marriage to be doing things like this together. Look, I really want you to take a look at this. I want your opinion.
Okay, you want my opinion? How about you just cut out your weekly golf outings? That'll save us a fortune.
Or we could cut your lattes and pedicures.
Hey, I said you can come get a pedicure with me anytime. They say time together is good for the marriage.
There's no way I'm getting a pedicure. Besides, I thought we were talking about how to spend less money, not more.
I hate talking about money. Wouldn't it be so much greater if we could just win the lottery and eat Guernseys all day?
Okay, you want ice cream? How about I go to the freezer, bring back some ice cream, and then we can sit here and work on this together.
Fine.
Okay. And I'll bring back some whipped cream and some chocolate syrup for later, just in case.
Don't even think about it.
Anyone who has been married before has been in that situation, some argument in the bed, backs are turned to one another, and that is why we are here kicking off 2019 together. And so I want to say hi, all of you here in the Classic, those watching in our modern service or online. Great to have you with us as well. 2019, it's hard to believe it is here. But it is, and I have good news. Someone in one of the previous services found me and said, I want you to know I have 100% attendance for 2019, and I want you to know as well you have that same 100% attendance today. So great to have you with us. Something as a leadership we've been talking about is this longing we have for healthy families. How do we have healthy families, healthy parenting, healthy marriages? And so for us, this series we kick off, Money, Sex, and Kids, Hope for the Things We Fight About. And the title of this comes from a book by Dr. Tina Tessina. Her book, her title, not as hopeful, Money, Sex, and Kids, Stop Fighting About the Three Things That Can Ruin Your Marriage. She knows how to sell books. She knows how to get the books to sell. And so we want to kick off this series. And if you're not married, I want to encourage you. I believe that the principles here can be applied to your life as well, especially today. And so I encourage you to tune in to how these principles apply to you and your life. So today, I'd like to talk to you about money. I'd like to talk to you about money. Since the dawn of human civilization, as far back as we can look, there are primal questions that all civilizations, all societies, all cultures have tried to answer. And one of those questions is, who is well off? Who is well off? Or another way to say it, who has the good life? And in our culture, you do not have to look very far or very long for some ad, some image, some commercial, some person to tell you this is what the good life is. This is who is well off. It could be an ad you see where it's in a very expensive car. And this very expensive car is driving well over the speed limit on an open desert road. Anyone can go there with that magical car? Yeah, you feel it? It's this image we have of a very large house with a pool that sits overlooking Los Angeles on a sunny day in January where it's 75 degrees. And when I compare that image to my home, to my state, to my January, it looks a little different. And that one gets to me. Who is well off? Well, the good news for you and me is the greatest and wisest person to ever live did not ignore this primal question that we seek to answer. But he gave his take on what that well-off life looks like. And this is what Jesus of Nazareth said. Do not store up for yourselves treasure on earth, where moths and vermin destroy and where thieves break in and steal, but store up for yourselves treasure in heaven, where moths and vermin do not destroy and where thieves do not break in and steal. For where your treasure is, there your heart will be also. The eye is the lamp of the body. If your eyes are healthy, your whole body will be full of light. But if your eyes are unhealthy, your whole body will be full of darkness. If then the light within you is darkness, how great is that darkness? No one can serve two masters. Either you will hate the one and love the other, or you will be devoted to the one and despise the other. You cannot serve both God and money. Jesus says there is this picture of the good life that you can have, that you can get, that is full of joy and peace and contentment and wholeness. But this life looks rather different than the ads and the images you may have seen. And so how do we make sense of our money? Well, Jesus in this passage says we've got to understand money and its power. Money and its power. You see, he says, where your treasure is, there your heart will be also. The idea is where you invest your money, your heart, your thoughts, your will, your emotions, your whole being is going to be attracted to wherever you're investing your money. The reality is money has overwhelming power. And Jesus knew this. I heard a funny story one time about this man who was at a party. He saw this beautiful woman on the other side of the party, and he said, I've got to meet this woman. And so he made his way over and started to carry on a conversation with her. He shared with her, hey, listen, I know I don't look like much, but I want you to know that my father is very, very wealthy. And he is very old, and he is not in good health. And the doctors are saying he may have a year tops to live. And when he dies, I will be worth $100 million. The woman is impressed at this point, and she grabs his business card. 3 days later, this man receives word that she is now his new stepmother. Some of you are just now getting it, and it's okay. Jesus would tell stories like this. Not exactly like this, but he would tell stories about this kingdom, about this life with God that you could experience and know. And he would say things like, this kingdom is like an expensive pearl, or it's like treasure hidden in a field, and you must stop at nothing until you get it. Because at the core, Jesus knew that you and I, if we can admit it, have to treasure something. It's in our wiring, it's in our DNA, and money produces in us unforced desire. It has a power over us. And Jesus also in this passage, he talks about money and its deception. You see, he says in this passage, beware that you have an unhealthy eye. Now, I don't know if you, but when I read this, it always strikes me as weird. And so preparing for this message, I saw several commentators. Why does it talk about an unhealthy eye? Well, see, there were different views of what is sight. And there's the view that there are these images out here, there are people in front of me, and our eyes receive those images, an external reality, which is our modern view of vision. But in the ancient world, they believed in this idea that we reflect or project what's inside of us out. And so Jesus talks about it's not what's outside the man that defiles him, it's what's on the inside. And so this important reality of what does it mean to have an unhealthy eye? And why is it so important? It's because if we don't understand money and its deception, we may not realize or see its effects. I heard a story one time about this pastor. He was preaching a breakfast lecture series on the 7 deadly sins, and some of those, pride and lust and anger. And he was doing this lecture series, and he started to have a conversation with his wife about this breakfast series. And the wife started saying, are they going to be advertising for these various lectures you're going to give? Are they going to advertise? And he said, yes, of course we're going to advertise. And then she said, so people will know ahead of time when you are going to preach on various subjects. And he said, yes. And she said, so they will know when you're preaching on greed. And he bit back, well, yes, of course, why wouldn't we? And then she bit back, marriage 101 and healthy conflict. And she said to him, the attendance is going to go down that day. It's going to be the lowest attended of all those breakfast lectures you're going to give. No one's going to come out to hear that. And she was right. It was the lowest attended of all those lecture series that he gave. The question is why? Well, one, the wife is always right. I think I just heard an amen. That's another sermon, but that's just a little extra. Second, the reason it was the lowest attended lecture series is no one thinks they have a greed problem. No one came out to hear about greed because no one thinks they struggle with greed. I'll say it this way. In 10 plus years of being a pastor, counseling various people from all ages, let's say from young to more experienced, across different socioeconomic, I have never, not once, had someone want to meet with me for counseling where they said, listen, Tyler, I got to meet with you. I have a problem with greed. Tyler, I'm materialistic. I have an issue with greed. I've never had anyone say that. Now, I know some of you in the room, I know what you're thinking. You're saying, Tyler, what could you possibly know? You look like you're 30. Someone's thinking that. And that's okay. And I knew that would probably happen. So I sought counsel with another pastor on our staff who we will just say is more experienced, has a few more years than me. And they said the same thing. Never, not once, has they had anyone who has approached them saying they need to talk about their greed issue. And this is the problem with the unhealthy eye. It tells you and me we actually don't have a problem. The unhealthy eye says, no, I don't have a problem with greed. There's no issue there. Because we can immediately think of someone out there. Now, they are really greedy. they really have the issue. All I need is just a little bit more. See, if I just had a little bit more, then everything would be complete. Everything would be whole. Everything would find its place. But what keeps happening? The money just keeps disappearing. We get a little more, and it's like, wait, where did that money go? Does anyone else feel that way? You get a little bit more, and it's like, wait, did that money just disappear that we just got? Well, the ancient book of Proverbs says this: do not wear yourself out to get rich. Do not trust your own cleverness. Cast but a glance at riches, and they are gone, for they will surely sprout wings and fly off to the sky like an eagle. Does anyone feel that way about your money? It keeps disappearing. It keeps getting wings and going, goodbye on you. So if you wouldn't mind, just out of sheer unison together this morning, just take out your hand, and I just want you to wave with me. Just wave bye to all your money. Just wave. There it goes. It's got wings. It's gone, especially if you have kids. There goes that money. Lynn Twist wrote a book called The Soul of Money, and in that book she's talking about the myth of scarcity that you and I feel. It's the sense of there's these limited resources out there, and if we just need a little bit more. We just need a little bit more. She says this, scarcity as a chronic sense of inadequacy about life becomes the very place from which we think and act and live. We become convinced that if I just had a little bit more, then all my issues would go away. At the height of his career, I guess I can't speak, sovereignly over that. At this point, his career could change in the future, but at this point, the height of his career, in 1999, actor Brad Pitt sat down with Rolling Stones magazine because they wanted to talk to him about, listen, life, success, fame, you have it. Tell us about that life. And so he did, and this is what he said. Man, I know all these things are supposed to seem important to us, the car, the condo, our versions of success. But if that's the case, why is the general feeling out there reflecting more impotence and isolation and desperation and loneliness? If you ask me, I say toss all of this. We got to find something else. Because all I know is at this point in time, we are heading for a dead end, a numbing of the soul. I think the reporter interjects at this point, kind of caught off guard. He said, so if we're heading toward this kind of existential dead end in society, what do you think should happen? And Pitt continues, hey man, I don't have all those answers yet. The emphasis now is on success and personal gain, and I'm sitting in it, and I'm telling you that's not it. Whether you want to listen to me or not, that is not it. I am the guy who's got everything I know. I love how he just speaks so matter-of-factly of, yeah, I've got everything. I'm the guy who's got everything, I know, but I'm telling you, once you get everything, then you're just left with yourself. Don't miss that. I've said it before, and I'll say it again. It doesn't help you sleep any better, and you don't wake up any better because of it. Now, I know no one's going to want to hear that. And I understand it. I'm sorry, I'm the guy who's got to say it, but I'm telling you, that's not it. Jesus, the master teacher on life, shared 2,000 years ago on a hillside to the religious and the ragamuffin that if you store up treasures on earth, they will waste out, wear out, rust out, run out, but they will eventually be what? Out. And you and I are invited to a different reality where we do not have to worry. And all that we need is right here with God. Jesus says, but store up for yourselves treasures in heaven, where moths and vermin do not destroy and where thieves do not break in and steal. The Greek word for treasure is thesaurus, a treasure store of meaning. And Jesus is inviting you to step into a way of life where you will not have meaning ruined, but be revived with it following Him. That when we seek to invest our money in heavenly treasure, nothing is lost. But when we store up on earth, what we find is a very bearish market. Does anyone feel the market is a little bearish these days? And Jesus invites you and me to store up treasures in heaven where it is always a bullish market. He invites you to a different market, the market of the kingdom, where we get to experience more of heaven invading into earth, where we make up there come down here in ever-increasing reality. Jesus, as he closed this great message, he closed with these words. He says this, therefore, everyone who hears these words of mine and puts them into practice is like a wise man who built his house on the rock. The rain came down, the streams rose, the winds blew and beat against that house. Yet it did not fall, because it had its foundations on the rock. But everyone who hears these words of mine and does not put them into practice is like a foolish man who built his house on sand. The rain came down, the streams rose, and the winds blew and beat against that house, and it fell with a great crash. whether we realize it or not, we are building a certain kind of house with our lives. You see, we're not static people, but we are becoming a certain kind of person. We're either gathering materials to build a house with our life that will be toppled over with the first storm, or we can follow this man Jesus and learn how to build a house with our life in such a way that no matter what storm comes, we will always be safe. Jesus says to you and me this morning, you can have this kind of life. I grew up near the coast on the ocean in North Carolina. And along where the ocean is, into our town were all these marsh areas and tributaries. And imagine that I went to this lumber yard, and I'm inspecting the various materials, and the sales rep comes over to help me. And we start to carry on a conversation, and he asks what I'm doing. I said, well, I'm planning to build a house. And I said, yeah, there's this great land I got for dirt cheap. And of course, because money produces in us unforced desire, this sales rep says, hey, where is this land? I might want some. And so I share with him, well, it's between Pine Grove Road and Greenville Loop Road. And he starts to think about that area, and he says, well, that's all marsh. That's marshland. And I said, yeah, but it's dirt cheap. Now, that sales rep has two options. He can laugh in my face, or if he's behind on his commission for the month, he will make the sale. And as he waves bye to me and sees my car leave the parking lot, he will turn to his other sales rep and say, you will never believe the idiot that I just met. You see, Jesus, when he talks about this kingdom, he's not primarily talking about how much you have to sacrifice or slave to get in, but he's talking about you doing the most sane thing possible. He says, the foolish man builds his house on unstable ground. The Greek word for foolish is moros. Do you know what we get from moros? Moron. What a moron would build their house on a marsh. What moron would take their savings and build a house that will be toppled over with the first storm? Jesus says there is a better way for you and me to live, where we experience joy ever increasing, wholeness ever increasing as we follow him to life with God. Where we invest more of our money into this heavenly reality, which is always a bullish market. And we see the ways God moves and works in you and through you. A couple things to help us on our journey with God and this money. The first one, and this may be some people here or watching online, is you need to develop a budget. Develop a budget. You may be here and you don't have a budget this time. And it's going to be hard for you to know what kind of house you're building or where the dollars are going if there's no budget in place. And so one thing I practically like to give people is a 10-10-80 plan. 10% to God, 10% to you and your savings, and you live off the other 80%. And in doing that, it will take some work to create that budget, but you will find a sense of knowing where is my life heading, who am I becoming by doing this. Secondly, face out. And my image for this is I just married a couple. They were right in front of me. They're facing each other. They've just shared their vows with one another. And I have this groom who's like on his toes, just leaning in with expectation for permission from me to make out with his new bride in front of me. There's this joy, this excitement right here, and they're facing each other. And what happens at the end of the service? They turn out hand in hand as they go on this new journey together. And what happens over time, I find in marriages, is the hand begins to drop down to your side, and over time you turn back in, but now not with excitement and joy, but you turn back into who's now the enemy. This person who, they're the issue with the money, and this person needs to get right. And what my invitation may be to some of you today is to turn back out, to face out with your partner through thick and thin to make this journey together. Third, Start somewhere. I end this sermon. It'll end at some point, don't worry. We end this service, and I say, listen, let's go for a run. Michigan Marathon, 26.2 miles. Who's with me? Anyone here? Sir, I got like one hand. Is that it? One hand. Thank you, whoever you are back there. Why is that? Well, if we took off running 26.2 miles in pure Michigan January right now, you and I would die. Maybe not you, but definitely me, either through physical exertion my body's not prepared for, or through pure Michigan January itself. One of those two would end me. And my word of caution for you as we talk about this journey of generosity is to take a few small steps to building the right kind of house. Because what I might imagine someone would say is that hey, listen, Tyler, it's a new year, I'm changing, I'm going to start giving 10% away. And I would advise you just to start somewhere and don't do more than you are ready for. So if you're not giving anything, start to give 2. If you're giving 5, give 7, up till you get to that 10%. And if you're giving 10%, continue to pray to God, hey, is there places of generosity, God, you're still calling me to? But start where you can. And there may be somebody here or somebody watching in our modern service or online. You're here and you're saying, because I know there's at least one of you, you're saying, Tyler, I don't want to give to the church because I don't trust you. And that's okay. This sermon is about your soul and what God wants to do in you with generosity. And so I don't want that to be the first barrier for you. So there are great organizations out there. Start there, but you need to start somewhere. Start somewhere. Last, you need to have a vision. Have a vision. What kind of house do you want to build? A house on the rock or a house on the marsh? A house where any storm will knock over the house, or a house where whatever you face, the house will not be shaken? What kind of person are you becoming? Follow Jesus and let him teach you how. A life of joy and gratitude that just keeps flowing from the inside out. A life where more of heaven keeps getting down here in this broken world. A life that no matter what happens, there are no limits to what God can do in you and through you if you will simply open your hands. I heard a great story about a young girl named Rachel Beckwith. Rachel was getting ready to celebrate her 9th birthday. And instead of presents for her birthday, she wanted all the people coming to give to an organization called Charity Water, which gives clean water around the world. And her goal was, I want to raise $300 that would be enough to give clean water to 15 people. And so she had her birthday came, birthday went, and she only had raised $220. But she vowed, my next birthday, we're going to do it, we're going to hit 300. And sadly, a month after her birthday, Rachel died in a car accident. But this story about this amazing girl who was building this kind of life where she just wanted heaven to get down here more and more in her life and through her. It's the kind of story, it's like, how does that disappear? That the news media started just picking up this girl who, for her 9th birthday, rather than getting presents, wanted to give clean water to people around the world. The story of a girl who was living such a life to follow Jesus. It said, man, no matter what comes, this house on the rock will always stand. And so when you sit by and you see that, how can you not get involved? And so people all around the world started to give $9 upon $9 upon $9 upon $9 to this one little life who said, I will not sit by and store up treasures for earth, but I will store up treasures for heaven. And so people gave, and they gave. And so this one little girl who wanted to raise $300 through her life ended up raising $1.2 million. And you may be sitting here saying, could I build that kind of life? And I wanted you to see the impact that a 9-year-old can have. And so let's roll this on the video.
It's 6 in the morning and we're about to go see some of Rachel's wells.
I am Richard. I am Rachel's grandfather. I really wish Rachel could be here today because, first of all, Rachel would think that this is probably the neatest thing she'd ever seen in her entire life.
Our community, our church, where we are from, we greatly love Rachel and continue to love her family. And I'm overwhelmed with how greatly you have honored her memory. So please receive my most deepest and heartfelt thanks. You've done us a great honor today, so thank you. Yep.
Rachel developed such a big heart from such a young age that she understood and felt the pain of others on the other side of the world. To give up her birthday present so that other children can improve their lives is the most beautiful gift a person can give.
I'm going to invite our ushers to come forward as we prepare to receive our offering. When we get consumed with making up there, come down here, God takes our crazy little dreams of trying to reach 15 people and He changes 37,000. Jesus said, "Do not store up for yourselves treasures on earth, where moths and vermin destroy and where thieves break in and steal, but store up for yourselves treasures in heaven, where moths and vermin do not destroy and where thieves do not break in and steal." Jesus is saying, when you surrender your money and your will to God, there is nothing, not even death itself, that will keep heaven from breaking into this broken world. What kind of house are you building? What kind of person are you becoming? Follow Jesus and let him teach you. And may you experience the richness and the beauty of a life that sees eternity's impact flowing through you. Would you pray with me? And so, God, we this morning, by your grace and by your Spirit, seek to follow Jesus to build the right kind of house. A house where whatever we face, we are safe. And a house that makes up there come down here in unbelievable ways. Make that a reality for all of us. Father, Son, and Holy Spirit, we pray. And everyone said, amen. Amen.